Hello, this is IndoShares Mr. Create.
Mr. An.
Connect.
Hi, how are you? So last week we had the video on Peter Lynch's seminar or
Yeah, that was
but
only
video,
in
yeah.
Korean.
Yeah, it wasn't translated in English.
we didn't have to summarize it.
Oh, yes, that's true.
It wasn't in English, so we didn't have to summarize in English. So we apologize for absence last
Of
week.
1 week?
Yeah, of 1 week.
Mm-mm.
So we came back for the stock introduction this week.
Yes.
Another
So,
stuff.
Yeah, what are we covering this week?
We are covering a company named Square.
Square.
Yeah.
Oh, before that, I guess.
Before that, Square does various things. But if we were to categorize it, it has the function of a VAN and PG and online banking. For note, VAN stands for Value Added Network, and PG stands for Payment Gateway.
Personal gain.
Personal. Yeah, it's listed on NYSE. So basically, it provides online and offline infrastructure, facilitating the commercial goods sales for sellers and buyers. So before we talk about the actual business of Square, we need to talk about what is PG and VAN. Well, VAN is a network provider. It's a type of business connecting shops and credit card companies and supplying POS, point of sale terminals to shops. And PG business connects online shops and customers, but it requires a VAN to link with credit card companies.
So like in plain language, VAN would be like if you go buy beer in the shop, you use the credit card, and basically you're paying money to credit card, and the credit card will basically deliver cash to that shop. So there's that one middle guy.
Yeah, there's an intermediary called VAN.
Yeah, but it will allow people to buy without cash, like allow people to buy credit card, because we have a credit card company's VAN network.
That is true. And PG is only applicable for online shops. So Square claims or said they say that they have created seller ecosystem inside their business. So from a software perspective, they provide POS. So the Square point of sale program, it's downloadable from iOS or Android. Or it's already pre-installed in terminals that they provide to the sellers, or they also provide a Square Virtual Terminal, and it's a POS system for the sellers who don't have the offline shops, but only manage the online shopping malls. And also Square Appointments, a program also. They allows the sellers to manage the sales appointments for their own customers, and they have Square has customized these POS system specifically for retail shops and restaurants and so on, and they also provide services like building websites for potential online shops, shop sellers, and it allows them to sell goods on Instagram or Facebook, and and Square dashboard, they show real time sales and inventories and analytical insights for the sellers. So this is the software's perspective, and for hardware, they also sell. They provide the sellers with the MagStripe reader, as you can see on the right, and also contact lens chip reader. Also, they also provide the terminals with two screens, which both seller and the customer can actually see the receipts and the price and so on. It's called Square Register, and it also provides an iPad. So basically, if a seller has already has got an iPad and doesn't have a terminal, that iPad could be converted into a POS terminal. It's called Square Stand, and the Square also has Square Terminal, which is portable, and the payments can be made wherever inside the shop. And so inside the seller ecosystem, as I said, they have the software and the hardware, and they also provide financial services. And what they do is they manage the seller's payments. So they allow next day settlements and payment. They also coordinate and manage payment disputes for the sellers, and they also define themselves as a payment service provider, which is similar to PG. They also provide several financial functions, such as instant transfer. It's the payments can be received instantly or later on that day, by charging the sellers about 1.5% of fee of per payment. And they also provide Scare Card and payroll services, which allows the sellers to prosper growth for I think this is the most important sector in their business, which is Square Capital. They basically they provide loan to Square sellers, but they're not providing their money to the sellers, but they sort of have a set up relationship with an industrial bank, and provide them with the sellers post data and sales data, so that that bank could lend some money to the sellers.
Well, I think the essence of the business model for capital companies are that they issue the debt, and I'm pretty sure the debt has to come from, like, the debt financing has to come from commercial bank. They borrow money from the bank and then they lend it to their own customers at a higher interest rate, and then the margin would be their profit. So I think that the connection with the commercial bank or Federal Reserve Bank, it has to do with that kind of thing, where I'm pretty sure the Square Capital doesn't have money, so they have to raise money from somewhere, and I think that means to raise money would be commercial bank or Federal Reserve Bank.
Yes.
So that's what.
Yeah. So the basically the loan size for a seller, it will be estimated less than 20% of the seller's gross payment volume, and the loan repayment will be made on the basis of a fixed rate per payment, and it takes like 8 to 9 months for the entire repayment. And as you said, the financing loans will be from the institutional third party investors.
So, like, just to summarize Mr. N's comment would be that Square Capital has so much data about certain business or certain customer, because they have the access to their revenue all the time. So they were able to, with the integrated artificial intelligence system that analyzes one customer's financials, they can lend money to the customer. But they every month they have to pay fixed percentage of the revenue back to the Square Capital for the repayment of their principal. So within probably 10 months of the time, the customer should be able to repay all their principal as well as interest rate. So I think that Square Capital is what allows the loan system to work with small business companies.
Yes.
Because they have the data.
They have the data. Yeah. So these are the the basic term for the seller ecosystem. So we're gonna move on to cash ecosystem. But I think the Square has Cash Cash App is the cash ecosystem, and it helps you know, buyers or individuals to manage their money. So it's like similar to online banking. The app allows people to store and send and receive funds among Cash App users, and it's quite simple for that app users to spend via the Cash App. I mean, buy or buy goods, and it also allows the users to invest in stocks, ETFs, and Bitcoin. Yeah. So I think Square has a lot of business sectors, and this is why they also have the many competitors, from paper to loan providers, and also P2P transfer and fund transfer app. But what they claim is that they have the competitiveness in that they have created ecosystems, and they also provide transparent pricing to their sellers, and they also do not enter into contract in the long term, and they also have the insights in the data analysis. Yeah, so this is the basic business model for the Square Inc.
So they started off as the company that allows transactions to take place for sellers and buyers who have no access to any kind of means for transaction. But I heard that the company was started with that one notion that the sellers and buyers couldn't make the transaction because they didn't have the POS terminal. One didn't have cash. They wanted to do it with credit card, and the founder took the idea that they wanted to be able to allow people to make transaction anywhere possible. So they started off with that kind of business model, but they're transitioning from the data that have been collected. They're transitioning to the banking industry, basically.
Yes.
That's what I see about this company's business model. So yeah.
Okay. Covering the market analysis, as we discussed, Square does POS market. So I wanted to see POS market share for companies within the US. Out of 178 companies, Square POS was ranked at 178,
Really?
with less than 0.01% of share. Okay, this is really small. Microsoft and all other big names are playing big parts, and Square does a little, which we will cover later. Also, in payment processing share, PayPal is dominating all the others. If you sum up the rest of them, I think it's still less than the PayPal. Square ranked at 6, still really small. Cash App, I don't think you can see the actual bar, but it's there. The main reason the Square is really small compared to other companies is that they are new to the market. Previous big shop owners, big companies, I don't think they will need another POS for their shop because they already have it. It works fine. PayPal, Microsoft, and all. So Square, to survive from within this competitive market, they should focus on niche market. I think that's small to medium sized business. Therefore, their total volume is quite small, but since they're focusing on very niche market, I think they have their own advantages compared to the others. Speaking of small to medium sized business, I wanted to take a look at US small business information statistics because I like numbers. I think it speaks louder than words. 90% of business population is represented by small and medium sized businesses. By population, it's just a size. It's not revenue, dollar amount, but it's just a size. So seeing 90% may look huge, but if you look into commercial term, it may be small. But this is one perspective which Square can address into. However, small businesses tend to unstable compared to the big companies. 50% of small enterprises will fail within first year, 95% within 5 years, which means that there's a lot of risk associated with doing business with small businesses. Also, because of the coronavirus, 31% of US small business have been closed out. If you look at the overall map, you see that a lot of states are showing negative values, and on average, I think that sums up to be like 30% of closure.
That's huge.
Which means if Square is focusing on the small to medium-sized business, this is bad news for them. Of course, I want to bring up good news for investors, but I think it's wiser to see actual facts rather than the sweetness of juices that they get. Cash App market share, on the other hand, compared to payment processing share, Cash App does actually well. Zelle, I am not sure which mother company it has. I need to follow up on that. But Venmo is PayPal's Cash App, and Cash App is Square's Cash App. Their volume seems to be that Square is doing quite well, and the left graph does not capture 2020 data, but according to news article, during 2020, the Square trading volume was rapidly increased compared to the Venmo, which strengthened their market stability. According to professional investor, in 2020, Cash App revenue will reach up to 3.3 billion, while Venmo reach 1.6 billion. So they're weighing a lot of potential to the Cash App compared to Venmo. Since this is P2P, mobile P2P market, I wanted to see who are using it and what are the potential demographic which will impact Square's business. Looking at the right hand side of the graph, ages under 44 are main target demographics, and if you look into the left graph, you see that there is a fat portion of age group which I highlighted. So for Square is a positive forecast because the bottom part of demographic is quite huge, and this will then translate into their potential market. As Mr. N said, they're doing P2P loan, and P2P loan is quite important for us to understand, as major portion of revenue is coming from the loan market as well. From 2019 to 2021, the market will forecast to be a little downward slope, but up to 2025, it will grow back. So if you compare 2020 to 2025, I think it's about twice larger growth rate. Among that, I wanted to see how does it implicate business forecast to Square. Looking into this graph, I realized that small business loan will spike up very much compared to other sectors, which means that there is a huge potential for small business loan to grow. I'm referring to other article, and it says average small business loan is about $107K in 2018, which I think Square can manage to handle. Big banks approval rate is around 26.9%, so more than 70% of small business owners are not able to get their available loan to run their business. So in this market, I think Square has very strong and positive business presence. So for them, I think 2020 and on, they will have a good chance of increasing their business stronghold. But once again, I just want to emphasize that small businesses are unstable compared to the big company. If you're looking into the right graph, it's delinquency ratio, which is quite pointing up 2020 and on. It's not as much as great financial crisis during 2008 and 2010, but one should keep in mind that small business is small business, and they are more up to affected by the macroeconomics, and so the Square should take into this. But I heard that Square does well with their data and integrated AI, as Kriit said. They're analyzing the risk profile pretty well, so the chance of delinquency and default will be limited, but we should keep in mind that small business has their own risk.
Yeah, this is my part. I read third quarter 10K report. It's like 90 page. It's excruciating pain. You have to read everything. I didn't read everything, by the way. So History of the company, it was established in 2009. The market capitalization as of 2020 December 4th is $93 billion. Its business model, I don't know. It's very complicated.
It's more than technology.
Yeah, it's banking and whatnot. Headquarters started in obviously California, United States. It has the market in Canada, UK, Australia, Ireland, but they're expanding. Their revenue is not as much as United States. The IPO date would be like 2015 at the price of $12. Company type, yeah. I mean, if you have watched the video whole time, you know what the type of the company is. The third quarter revenue has been $3 billion, but if you look at like a 12 months trailing 12 trailing months as of 2020 third quarter, and consider it with the market capitalization, PSR ratio is 12 times. But there's a huge portion of this revenue that accounts for Bitcoin revenue, which is almost same as Bitcoin expense. So I wouldn't count on the Bitcoin revenue part. So I took a look at the gross profit margin, TTM gross profit margin, and I compare it to the market capitalization. It's 30 times or more. So I think it's kind of expensive as of now, considering the short-term growth projection. I think we will probably see another shutdown. Well, not shutdown, but the business will be affected because of the prolonged progress of the coronavirus. I don't think the vaccine will be coming anytime soon. So you get to make your judgment. As you're aware of what the business model of the company is, you should be able to kind of predict what will happen throughout next year. But still, the company is growing. The financials, the stock price is $208. For the rest of them, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, I'll cover it. But one thing to notice is that the second quarter of 2020, the revenue hasn't grown as much as what it would have been without the coronavirus shutdown. So that's that. This is stock price. It's going up and up and up and up.
Beautiful graph.
Upward.
You should have invested it in 2020 March. You should have. This is in a way what I said, that it's expensive as of now. It correlates with the graph that unfolds since the March 2020. It's just gone up so much. So I think it will be too expensive for us to buy them now. For asset part, it's double from last year because of the senior debt convertible bond issuance from last year. So most of them, they have cash. As Mr. Hen said that the company is basically banking industry, so it has to have a lot of cash. Most cash and cash equivalents, I'll cover it anyways, but it's invested in government bond and MMF and whatnot. So basically, all the cash that they have is invested in very stable asset. It doesn't have any corporate bond. It just has the government bonds, not only in the United States, but it has government bond in foreign countries. It's investing in the MMF. So it's they basically have a lot of cash, and that just means that they have a lot of customers that deposited into their account, which I will show you in the next slide. As for the long-term asset, there's nothing really to look at. It's just minimum amount, like very small amount compared to total asset. So one thing to notice is that this company doesn't seem to be manufacturing company. It seems to be resemblance of a banking industry. So it has a lot of cash. As for the liability, as you can see, customer payable, I think it's the money that the customers deposit into their cash app or whatnot. So they have to pay it back. It's not theirs. But because of that, on the other side, they invested in MMF and government bond with the money that's been deposited by a customers. For the rest of them, it's not a huge amount. One thing to notice is that long-term debt of 1.7 billion is the total sum of all the senior convertible bond issuance. So basically, this company gets money or customers deposit money into this company, and they put it into their own bank account. And they also issued another convertible bond for, I think, lending capital for Square Capital. So that's it. This company doesn't seem to have that much debt. It has a lot of cash. So the liquidity issue is not as bad as what one might think. And so you shouldn't worry about basically this company going bankrupt unless they play with the the money that they deposited in, and somehow they invested in some kind of stock.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin and shit,
Yes.
and shit like that. But they still invested in $50 million
They did.
worth of Bitcoin. But that's not even that's not even a lot of money. That's like small amount of money anyway. So so this is just summary of their balance sheet. You don't have to particularly worry about their anything other than the debt. Well, I don't think you should worry about anything. As for the income statement, um, yeah, they have like transaction-based revenue. This is basically for salaries market. Subscription and service-based revenue, I think it's basically the Square Capital's all the lending process and cash, the revenue from the Cash App. For the rest of them, hardware revenue. If you look at something funny about this income statement is that hardware revenue, I think it's POS terminal, the actual thing that they make. The revenue, if you look at the revenue and if you look at the cost, 45 million versus the cost, 27 million revenue. I think they're selling at their expense.
Yes.
So they're selling at a cheaper price. I think it means that they want to just expand their platform. It doesn't mean that much to the company anyway.
It's to collect the data, I think.
Yeah, it's to collect the data. So it's platform business. You can just give it out, I guess. Bitcoin revenue 1.6 billion, but the Bitcoin cost is 1.6 billion. So I don't know if they're making extra money from Bitcoin revenue. So you shouldn't be. If you look at for me, I think you should discount the Bitcoin revenue part. If you want to calculate PSR of this company, I think you should just erase the Bitcoin revenue part. I don't know what Bitcoin revenue part is, but you should just erase it. I think it's 3 billion is not the information that you should be looking at. I think it's more like 1.4 billion. Asset status, no one customer has more than 10% of the revenue of the company, which means that just because one company goes bankrupt, it will have major impact to this company. It's comparable to the Fastly that we covered last week. Most assets are invested in domestic and foreign bonds, adding to the stability of their investment part. Valuation of the asset has been very meticulous. Like I look at their income statement and there's been logic, not like exact logic, but there's like why this
methodology.
why this asset has been affected negatively because of the interest rate and whatnot. So they're doing it. They're doing a really good job with their bookkeeping. I think customer funds are mostly in MMF at the amount of 1.02 billion dollars. Basically, when I said the 6.5 billion are in almost in cash, $1 billion is in MMF, which means that they're investing in very stable market. I think Ripple market. M&A has occurred, I think, throughout the year, but it's only like $34 million. It's not even comparable to the entire size of the company. Intangible asset, they went through the impairment loss test because of the coronavirus, and they haven't had any impairment losses. So I mean, this is to show you that the company is very careful with the valuation of the company. They're doing all the things that they can. They're showing it to their investors. Convertible bond, I'll cover it later. As for the debt status, Square Capital is contracted with the Federal Reserve Bank for Paycheck Protection Program liquidity facility lending. This is hard, but I think that they're getting money from the Federal Reserve Bank, and the principal is kind of guaranteed by the government. So even
up to 500
million, and they lend it out. They lend it out to the customers at the amount of $473 million. I think it just means that even if the borrower doesn't pay back the principal, the Square Capital still can get it from the federal government. I think, or Federal Reserve Bank. Insured by the federal. So they only lend it out at the amount that's going to be covered by the government. Something that's funny about this company is that they issued a lot of convertible bond that has a maturity of 2022, 2023, 2025, and it will be converted, I think, into the shares. If you look at the price of the a share price of the company, it's $200. Times that with 43, that will be $8,000. So $1,000 worth of principal can be converted into $8,000. Who wouldn't?
I would love to buy that.
I would love to buy that. I should have invested in convertible bond. So it implies the dilution of the stock market of the stock in the company. So you should be aware that it's coming every year almost. So so it will be converted at certain point. And I think the portion of 2020 convertible bond has already been converted into shares. you'll go through a lot of dilution process. I think. So in some of the total convertible bond, it's almost $2 billion, but it's evaluated in 1.7 billion because of some amortization issues and whatnot. So they value it at $1.7 billion, which you can see at their long-term debt portion. As I mentioned, some portion of 2020 senior bond has been converted into shares, so it would dilute shares into the future. Company has started to sort of have two different segments. One is in Cash App and one seller. So they wanted to make sure that which one is more of the growth part, and they are going to focus on two different segments in the company, which is Cash App and sellers. So I think this company will eventually grow its Cash App portion and the subscription portion, which I think they said a significant portion of subscription is from Square Capital.
Square Capital.
This company is actually really turning into banking industry instead of like transaction part. But it has got the platform as well as banking, which adds to the valuation of the company. Revenue by the country, 95% of the total revenue is coming from United States. As I mentioned, they have expanded to like Ireland, UK, and Australia,
Japan,
and Canada, whatever. But it's the revenue is just small amount. I think they're only beginning to expand to other markets. But I'm not sure. Like I think Japan and UK, they probably have their own POS market anyway, so it will be very hard for them to penetrate those markets.
Yes.
There's been like long pages of MD&A and management discussion and analysis or whatever. The transaction was unavailable for a lot of mid-sized companies, so this is why the Square exists. They want to make sure the transaction takes place for both parties, sellers and buyers. They're providing financial services through Cash App, and they're like 30 different functions, including software and hardware and the financial service products. Revenue is composed of these transaction, subscription fees, and service fees. Transaction fee is really the seller's market. Subscription fees, I think, really has to do with the Square Capital's lending revenue. It's got a lot of diverse way for the transaction to take place. Like it uses Swipe, Europay, Mastercard, Visa, NFC, Square Invoice, this and that, this and that, and this and that. They got countless means to make transaction happening. Square Capital can provide seller loan service based on data collected. So if you imagine they have all the data from one customer, and you see the inflows and outflows of the company's revenue or company's cash flow. So the Square can basically lend money to their own customers, because they have all the data about their customers. So it will be easy for them to lend money compared to commercial bank who don't have like
any information.
So because they have the data, they are able to provide money or lend money to the customer, and the gross profit margin for this part is very high. I can go back. Cash App can connect to the bank account, and I've been repeating myself, but they can also cash out from the ATM. So it's basically any customers that are making transaction with Square, they can send money, they can use credit card, they can receive credit card, they can actually cash out from the ATM. So they have a really great platform. In summary of all the things that I said, they can also now, as I said, they're transitioning into the banking industry. This is why you can actually buy stocks and ETF in Cash App, and you can also buy Bitcoin in the Cash App as well. So they're managing sellers' money, but they're also managing all kinds of banking financial services. They're actually adding into the business segment. So that's that. One thing to notice is that during the coronavirus shutdown, the Cash App revenue went down so much. And not only Cash App, but all the subscription or the transaction fees it decreased dramatically. And they actually suspended the service. They actually refunded the subscription fee to their customers, because this is a mid-sized company. They can't afford that kind of money. They actually suspended service. They actually refunded, and then because of coronavirus, customers are aware of the cashless society or on-check payment. So the number of users for Cash App has increased dramatically right after the shutdown. So if you look at the revenue part, it has grown from compared to the previous year by 60%. one thing you should be aware, or you should really care, is the subscription fee portion has increased by 60%. So I think this is one thing you should be looking at every quarter. They release the quarterly report, because this is, I think, one of the most important part, because they have very high gross profit margin. Transaction revenue also decreased during the shutdown because the stores couldn't operate, so obvious reason. And as I said, that the numbers recover, or revenue recover right after, because of the cashless society that allows or increase the demand for the cash app. So yeah, so what I meant to represent for this slide is that if Joe Biden or Mr. President closes down the government one more time, it will have impact on Square, because it had impact and during March and April of 2020. So that's what I meant to cover. And gross profit margin for subscription or Square Capital is very important. You should be looking at them. And this is why they have high valuation, because they're transitioning now into banking industry, which allows them to address more markets. They invest in Bitcoin at the amount of 50 million, as I mentioned. They have a lot of I think they said diverse, or like they have number of legal proceedings in progress right now, but nothing material claimed by the executive members. So so they are sued by some customers, I guess. Square Capital insolvency risk exists, but I think that the criteria for lending is very strict with Square, with all the AI data and requirement. So it will reduce insolvency risk based on AI analysis. One thing to notice is that the Class B shareholder owns 66.5% of the company, and they are mainly the founders and employees and all those inside people. So they get to make decisions for their future rather than people outside of the company. So it will have pros and cons, but that's one thing to notice. Analyst rating by the Wall Street Journal. Their consensus has been overweight for 3 months. 3 months ago, 1 month ago, current. It's their opinion is mostly at the overweight. The average price target is $205, which is kind of lower than what the current price is. So you should be careful investing in this company. I think as for the short term, I think this company will probably be facing headwind. I think because coronavirus, number of infected cases are increasing right now.
In the United States.
Yeah, so it will likely, I don't know, lead to some form of shutdown, which will affect the Square in short term. So if there's a price dip, I think I recommend to buy, but not at the price as of now. So that's it. You should. I'm sorry that we actually had long hours of presentation. I'm repeating this over and over. You should understand the business model. You should understand market outlook. And you should understand the financials. So we're doing your homework, and 40 minutes worth of video. You get to make decision of one company. Prudent choice of investment, I think, will come from our video. So thank you for watching. And how do you say it?
If you like our video, please press like and subscribe our channel.
Do all the YouTubers want you to do, I don't know what the words in English. I guess subscribe and like
recommend
button.
to your friends, recommend to your wife.
Yeah.
Whoever wants to invest, please take a look. Study before you invest, and just don't blame on others. You made your decision, and if you didn't do your homework and you lost money, well, we're sorry, but you have to do your homework.
Yeah, we did it for you, so you should subscribe.
Yeah, thank you, and see you next week.